Well, hey folks, it's your old pal, King Waspinator. Welcome back to Total Party Skills. It's going to be another semi-cynical video about wokeness in D&D and whether or not it really even is woke. As I've explained in some of my other videos, my angle about like distaste in the current trends in Dungeons and Dragons in particular, and the companies that control it, is much more based on a consumer advocacy kind of angle. I don't like seeing any company take advantage of their consumers, and whereas traditionally throughout time they normally try to hide that fact, now in this weird world of internet social media, you have like a lot of instances of entertainment companies in particular, though not entirely limited to those, but mostly entertainment companies being rather directly antagonistic with their own fan base, which is a strange business model. I personally, I guess I'm in that camp of people that would theorize that this is all kind of a weird negative marketing angle. When your business model has changed, that you're hunting for investors more so than you're actually trying to sell product or put asses in seats. The algorithms are kind of blind in a way. They just crunch numbers. They don't really care if you're talking about Star Trek in a positive way or a negative way. They just know that you're talking about Star Trek Discovery. And so that allows them to put out charts and lists and figures that can all be manipulated and framed in the best way possible, so they can then sell that to their investors of like, look how much internet buzz we're getting about thing. And make money that way, way easier than actually having to go to the time and trouble of making a good product and actually trying to do the slow crawl uphill. They want to take that fast elevator to the stars instead. And D&D is doing a lot of that same kind of stuff. But on the other hand, some of the changes that they're making that are causing some of the controversy, like on a philosophical level, I still have to be like, there's nothing innately wrong with any of these things as long as you take them as optional. If they weren't packaging it alongside like antagonistic social media presence and a few things that are like real direct, obvious jabs at a certain kind of like type of fan base or figures within the fan base, stuff like Thaco the Clown and that whole Witchlight thing they did back during the summer being a recent example. But the idea of, for 2 years, schools have been shut down. So the idea that kids might want a role-playing game adventure about going to school and having a fantasy prom, is that really that huge of a stretch that there might actually be an audience for that? It might seem dumb, but we're also talking about a product aimed at younger people who've been raised on Harry Potter. So that kind of stuff's not really aimed for, people of my age range and older. We're still hung up on trying to recreate the Lord of the Rings and Star Wars. So, but there's parallels between some of the stuff that the dynamic of wokeness that goes on with D&D and with Star Trek, and it could also be that the people who wrote D&D came out of a cultural pop culture environment where Star Trek was a thing. So undoubtedly, it had an influence, an impact on their thinking, subconsciously at the very least. But in a similar kind of way, that Star Trek is kind of about, human race relations. D&D is also kind of about that too. Insofar that the way it presents things, player characters can play a broad swath of different optional non-humans and humans. And they all kind of got their different thing going on. Yeah, to some degree, there might be some real world stereotypes worked into the presentation of one of these fictionalized races or not, but it's actually really hard for human beings to envision the truly alien, so everything we do is based on combinations of things we're already familiar with, so that's not really a terrible surprise that it's written that way. Also, that's a way of kind of softball pointing out something without directly, framing it as the people you're talking about, because that comes across as more accusatory. In Star Trek Deep Space Nine, if there were no aliens, and the whole thing with Bajor and Cardassia was, Bajor was a Palestinian planet colony, and Cardassia was a Jewish colony planet, and they had the exact same backstory, that would come across massively differently and very offensive to a lot of people than by kind of couching it and kind of all these allegories of having these alien races as stand-ins to kind of discuss some of the stuff going on. Also, in the same way, also there's another angle that the Bajorans are Jews and that the Cardassians are Germans. By not nailing it down to actually specified people, but instead just kind of bringing in themes from history, it allows you to kind of do stories about that subject matter without being quite so direct and in your face with it, kind of a thing. And D&D, like insofar that some races might carry some human stereotypes within them, serves a similar function, while also at the same time your main cast of characters is an eclectic group of humans and aliens, or in D&D an eclectic group of humans and near human pseudo magic creatures like elves and wolf people and halflings and all that kind of stuff. And the humans themselves, though, are shown as being kind of above all that. The humans are diverse and don't really have as much incentive in their settings to really worry so much about, like, your nose is a different shape than mine. Oh, yeah? Well, your melanin content is 0.5% lower than mine. There's, like, none of that kind of stuff going on in those kinds of settings, because since the humans are not alone with only themselves to interact with, they can be shown as a humanity in the kind of idealized, peaceful form that we wish and would like to become. Star Trek humans are an idealized humanity where everyone gets along and is not only willingly cohabitates with each other, but actually takes active interest in each other's culture and views it all as cool. Oh my God, you're Indian? That's awesome. Hey, cool, you're from, Timbuktu? That's awesome. It all, all part of this is the rich tapestry of human experience. And it's the aliens that have problems. And because they're aliens, it kind of gives the humans, ability to kind of take the heat off of worrying so much about what they're up to. They're all united together in a way because of the fact that these alien economies and warlords and all this other kind of stuff cohabitating with them in their setting. In both these instances, at its core, whether it was intended or not, both the Lord of the Rings and D&D, because so much of its basic template of function is kind of ripped off of taking this Tolkien-esque, skin and placing it over war games and Conan adventure stories. It creates stories where, you're having people of a bunch of different races come together. A lot of them might have long, bad histories with each other, but, there's this evil undead dude who's going to kill us all. So it's, time for us to put aside our bullshit and learn to be friends and, channel our psychic energy through this magic axe we found so we can kill the dude at the place. And much the same way that Star Trek is, you're having conflict with a planet where, one half of the planet is white on the left side and black on the right side, and the other side of the planet is white on the right side and black on the left side. They hate each other for that. And yes, obvious analogy to what life was like in the 60s and all that kind of stuff aside, it detaches the audience from the subject matter in a way, while still showing the like as Shawner Films puts it, the future perfect vision of a humanity that's matured and has learned to like itself and not be constantly wringing its hands jealously that other people might be doing something against them or that they have something that they don't have. Let's just all chill the fuck out, people. Anyway, so whether or not D&D is actually any more woker now than it ever has been, just because they're a bit more softer on how you can choose your attribute scores, bonuses, and allowing people to play, a variety of cat people and satyrs and miniaturized centaurs and short minotaurs, because for some reason they really don't want to have to deal with player characters that are above medium size for some reason, beyond just going in, you're going to have limitations that up to half of the adventuring environments the rest of your player group gets to go in and poke around, you got to stay outside of because you're too big to get in the door kind of character. If you want to do that and sit around and wait outside, fine. That makes up for whatever, extra exponential bonus and strength and carrying capacity you think is going to somehow terribly unbalance your precious game. I don't know. Like I said, D&D as a company is and a lot of companies are engaging in bad business practices. But in terms of having talking animal characters, I mean that's old fables. That's nothing new. Who cares if some weirdo furry people, ex-Tumblrites, like playing those characters and sexualizing them? As much as like us older crowds seem to like want to like like pretend like we were like just the perfectly well-mannered little boys and girls back in the day. There's a reason why I say Your Highness is probably the most accurate D&D movie ever made, because I pretty much any game is always like a nice edge away from just devolving into a bunch of bawdy, raunchy humor and gay jokes. So call me black pilled all you want, but like I think a lot of people, the whole world would do better if everyone would be a little bit more inward focused on their constant scathing, laser-like critique of society and minding their own business, as opposed to worrying too much about what other people are doing with themselves. We have 7 going on 8 billion people on this planet. There's enough room for all sorts of human expression. Even the ones that you don't like. So anyway, I guess on that note, is D&D woke? Who the fuck knows? That's a relativistic question, and it depends on where you're standing and the speed at which you're traveling as we careen our way through this universe. Stay waspinated.